Hello again, everyone. This is Alan Cohn, the Democrat running for Congress in Florida's 15th Congressional District. And welcome to another edition of some of the get-togethers we're doing on Facebook and other platforms to keep in touch with you as we all go through this pandemic together. I hope we find you tonight well and safe and with your family and your friends as we get through this together. And hopefully before long be able to get back together in touch in person. And what we are been trying to do is touch on the subjects that are important to all of us. Number one, our health, our safety, the health and safety of our family and our friends and our wallets and our jobs and our businesses, and also the fabric that brings our community together. And one of the most important groups of folks that have been the air beneath the wings of this campaign is the LGBTQ community. And joining us right now is one of my dear friends, Christopher Brantley, who was one of our reporters at ABC7 during our years anchoring at ABC7 at 7. And whenever there was a story that needed to be told, whether it was a human interest story or a tough story about a tough issue, I turned to Christopher, who would do great reporting and dig deep onto these subjects. And then we would talk about it on set as you all got used to. And it was always Christopher's ambition to turn the table on me and lead the conversation. And Christopher, thank you so much for joining us, because we're going to be talking about an issue tonight that is close to your heart, and that is the LGBT community during COVID-19. And there are some unique challenges that we are facing. And why don't you explain just a little bit?
And before I do that, I should mention I am a member of that community, the LGBTQ community, having just married my husband in February. So
wow.
Newly married, thank you very much. Newly married and a big advocate for LGBTQ rights. And one of the issues that we are finding right now, that while we're all distracted with COVID-19, is that like the cup game, when things are being moved around and your attention's over here, something's going on over here. And that's unfortunately something that's happening right now with LGBTQ rights. And before we get into that whole discussion, Alan, if you could just kind of give us an understanding of what is your stance, plainly off the top, of the LGBT community and our rights.
You know, what's interesting, Christopher, is a lot of people have come to support issues, whether it's marriage equality or equal rights. And that's all a good thing. Some people come to it late in the game. I'm thinking of a number of members of Congress or the US Senate or in past presidential administrations, and they come to believe in marriage equality because of a personal connection, whether it's a daughter or it's a son, whatever. In terms of me and my wife and our family, it's a matter of family values that we inherited from our parents. I mean, with Patty and I, our parents brought us up in two different states to believe in equality, whether it's racial, whether it's sexual orientation or whatever. There was a public service announcement a couple of years ago done by John Cena, the wrestler who we all know. Christopher, I don't know if you've ever seen this or you heard of this, but every time I watch it, it brings chills. It really raises the hair. And I'm just going to quote a little bit of it because really it is an anthem. It should be an anthem to all of us, and it should cut into the kind of patriotism that we practice. And John Cena in this PSA goes on to say, this year patriotism shouldn't be about pride of country. It should be about love. Love beyond age, disability, sexuality, race, religion, and any other labels. Because the second any of us judge people based on those labels, we're not really being patriotic, are we? And I find this an incredibly profound statement because it is the way that I have lived my life. It's the way that Patty and I have raised our children. And if you're really going to cut to the chase in terms of of our stance and our position about LGBT rights and the community. It begins there. And to be clear, it's about more than just how you vote on any bill. It's about being an advocate and having a member of Congress, and we could talk about the member of Congress we're running against, but it's about having somebody representing us in Washington who will put these values up front and not be afraid to speak truth to power on this, and changing a vote on a whole bunch of critical issues from a automatic no to a yes.
And let's build off of that a little bit, because the person you're running against right now voted against an incredibly important bill last year, the Equality Act, which would have guaranteed more rights for LGBTQ citizens. And I wonder what your reaction is to something, as you're talking about your feelings, I wonder what your reaction is to your opponent voting against something that would provide equality to people. This is a part of the Civil Rights Act in 1964, right, is where this was to be added.
And what's ironic about that, when voting no on this, he quoted Coretta Scott King, and he said that freedom is never really won. We earn it, and we win it in every new generation, which really kind of is a perversion of what Dr. King's message was, and Mr. Spano related it to the freedom of religion and freedom of churches, and that's not what we're talking about. This country was born in terms of the never-ending struggle for liberty and freedom, and to love whoever you love, and to practice religion in your own way. I'm going to go back to that PSA that John Cena did, which has another incredible line. It's stitched into the stars and stripes of this country, from the Constitution to Gettysburg to our motto E pluribus unum, from many one. It's even in our country's name, the United States. So, what part of freedom and equality does Ross Spando not understand? It is central to what we call the United States.
So if you become a member of Congress, what can you do to advocate for our issues?
Well, number one, as I said earlier, it's changing a no vote to a yes vote. And it's also to be, at the beginning and at the front of making sure that no matter who is in the White House and who is part of the administration, that those rights are not trampled on. As we speak, as we sit here today, the Trump administration is trying to reverse a whole bunch of different rules that were adopted under President Obama that took the movement in terms of equality forward. And, look, we've already seen what this president and the administration has done in terms of people who are trans, who are part of our military, which, the President Obama and the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the prior administration basically not only opened the door to, but championed, and all of a sudden that has gone away. And look, no matter how you feel about the president and his administration, they know exactly what they're doing. They're counting on the fact that we are distracted, and we are distracted by this pandemic. We are concerned about our own health and the health of our family and our friends and our loved ones and our paychecks and our businesses. And they're using that distraction to move forward in terms of reversing some of these policies that were hard won because we're concerned about other things. And that's why you need folks like us in the Congress not to let them get away with it. And if this is a matter of codifying into law in the next administration, then we will do that. it's not going to be done if Ross Spano continues to be the congressman from the 15th congressional district, because he has shown every time he has gotten the opportunity that he is not for equality for everyone. And that is one thing that's going to change when I'm representing the 15th congressional district.
And to that end, with the Trump administration rolling back or attempting to roll back some Obama era protections that would quite specifically, as it was originally proposed, would allow healthcare providers to deny anyone that they perceive as transgender or gay, which, as a gay person, if I walk into the hospital and I was denied care because I was wearing a wedding ring and I'm standing there with my husband, it doesn't seem like we're in America that conversation would even happen, that a doctor would refuse care. It doesn't seem like it could happen. I guess the fear is that it will happen if no one's paying attention.
Absolutely. And there have been stories over the years about people who are transgender not getting the kind of medical attention that is their right in the hospitals. And we're also, keep in mind, not that far removed from the time when, if somebody was hospitalized, that marriage was not recognized and their spouse would not be allowed in the room or given medical information. We thought, with Supreme Court decisions and everything that the states have done prior to that we were past that. If there's anything that this administration has shown us, is that these values and these rights are fragile, and they require each and every one of us, no matter what position we have won, what position we are in the community. We have to be on the wall in terms of defense of these rights, because as I said, these are fragile. And not only do we need to be out there speaking about these things, but we need to be willing to sacrifice our jobs and own re-elections to defend those rights. Now, you mentioned that one particular issue. Let's be clear that the Trump administration is trying to do this on a whole host of issues, including environmental issues, including the EPA and rollbacks of environmental protections that have made our water cleaner and our soil safer. So during this period of time, it's hard enough when Congress is in session and Washington is working to be on the vanguard on these issues. It's even harder now.
And in a time of COVID-19, this is all happening. This is happening as recently as April the 24th. These potential rollbacks of these protections, and the Human Rights Campaign has put out several briefs now talking about how dangerous that is in the time of COVID-19. Nearly 1 in 10 LGBTQ people are unemployed. LGBTQ people are more likely to not have health insurance, which at this point in time becomes even more dangerous. So as if it couldn't for us be any more dangerous with potential rollbacks of discrimination laws, now you have a COVID-19 crisis, people losing their jobs. And the concern that a lot of LGBTQ people are having is, if people are being laid off or furloughed from their jobs, will they have the protections to be brought back? If their boss or the owner of the company that they work for didn't want to have them there originally, can they now use that as an excuse to not bring them back? And as a member of Congress, what would you do to ensure that doesn't happen if you were in Congress right now?
Number one, pass legislation that would go to, in times of crisis or natural disaster, when there are massive layoffs like that there has to be job protections in there that would not allow employers to get rid of certain employees, without good cause. And this is something that a lot of people are dealing with right now, because, as you said, the Human Rights Campaign has put out these these reports showing that there is a large percent of people working in the food service industry and the service industry in general who are LGBT and more susceptible to job loss like that. And when it comes to healthcare coverage, look, a higher percentage of folks in the LGBT community don't have health insurance. That's problem number one. But even if you do, and even if you have it through your employer, one thing that I've been talking about on the campaign trail is that that many times health insurance at this point comes with a $4,000 to $6,000 deductible before it pays 80% of your medical bill. So the system is broken in general, and Obamacare got us so far to begin with. We have to fix the holes in our healthcare system so no one is bankrupted by the fact that they may be getting an illness, whether it's COVID-19 or anything else. And you also have to keep into account, and these were incredible numbers, that there are a lot of folks have underlying health concerns, and according to the Human Rights Campaign, 37% of LGBT adults smoke every day compared to 27% of non-LGBT people. Here's another one. 21% of LGBT adults have asthma compared to 14% of the non-LGBT community. And I'll tell you, as the parent of a young woman who has asthma, we are well aware that, she has one of these underlying, health concerns that make her, make the whole idea of coronavirus and COVID-19 scarier for all of us. And, we can't be at a place, we don't know what the next pandemic is going to be or the next natural disaster, but certainly our laws have to protect the most vulnerable in situations like this.
And just to back up what we're talking about with LGBTQ, people having less likely to have health insurance, according to the Human Rights Campaign, in their 2018 brief, 17% of LGBTQ adults do not have any kind of health insurance covered, which is compared to 12% of non-LGBTQ adults. Furthermore, 23% of LGBTQ adults of color and 22% of transgender adults, and 32% of transgender adults of color have no form of health coverage. So this is absolutely an issue that we're facing, and even more so, regrettably, even more so in the time of COVID-19, where people are needing their health insurance. This is, after all, the time and the reason we have health insurance. My husband and I are fortunate enough to have our health insurance. We have health insurance through the marketplace because I am self-employed and my husband is not employed at this moment. He's in a transition between two jobs that got interrupted with COVID-19. So if something were to have happened, nobody could have predicted this, and we could have, potentially lost our health coverage. This all the same, but we thankfully have kept it. But that is not necessarily the common thing. And
Chris, but so let me say this: it's about leadership. This is all about leadership, and the nature of leadership is that sometimes you cannot, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen to our country. You don't know if we're going to be attacked by another country or a foreign state, or we cannot, always know that a terrorist attack is coming, or a natural disaster, or a pandemic like we're seeing. So these situations are about learning about what is wrong in our system and then fixing it. And to do that, you need leadership, and the kinds of people who go to Washington and are dedicated to solving problems, not just for the big corporations and the big banks, but for people just trying to make ends meet and make a living and have healthcare, which is a right. So what needs to happen after this pandemic is over is that we get to work and that we have leaders in Congress who recognize what happened during this pandemic for those who are or don't have insurance or do not have insurance that is good enough, and fix the holes in the system. So when these things happen or during the natural state of events, that people get the health coverage and the health care that everyone deserves.
And as an LGBT person, it's scary to have people who oppose your right to have rights, if that makes sense.
Especially when they're wrapped up there, that opposition, based upon prejudice and bigotry, and this should not be a battle between people who are trying to say it's their religious freedom to discriminate. We have freedoms in this country for you to believe whatever you choose to believe. But when it comes to how you deal with the public and how you deal with every citizen, whether you're talking about, as I said, race, religion, or sexual orientation, that should not matter in terms of you getting the health care that you deserve.
And I think we would both be remiss if we did not point out that the Equality Act that we are talking about, that your opponent did vote against last May 17th, that bill did pass the House of Representatives 236 to 173 and was sent to the Senate, where, as far as I could tell, it still remains a year later.
Like so much important legislation. And it's also important to remember that even if the Senate passed it, you have a president that would not sign it into law. And that really kind of brings up the bigger picture of this election. I mean, I am running for Congress in the 15th congressional district. We're talking about a district that extends from the eastern part of the Tampa area to the suburbs of Orlando, i.e. the I-4 corridor. And, the I-4 corridor has become known from coast to coast in the United States because there's a saying: the way the I-4 corridor goes, so goes Florida. The way Florida goes, so goes the nation. If we want to change who is president, if we want to get Joe Biden elected, then we need to win the I-4 corridor, which is basically this congressional district. So it's really important not only to win the White House and the presidency and the Senate, but if we don't win this congressional race, it would be hard to imagine how we could win the I-4 corridor. And it's not overstated to say that this election could rest on this.
Well, thank you very much for answering our questions, Alan. And certainly, as we get closer to the primaries, hopefully these LGBTQ issues resolve themselves for the better for us. But, sadly, it doesn't seem like they're going to be resolved until we have people like you who are willing to stand up against them.
Well, I appreciate that, Christopher. And it's really what this election is about. And in order to do that, the pandemic has changed a lot of things about our politics and how we're running campaigns in the age of COVID-19. And I know that you and I made plans to get together and bring people, members of the community together to talk about this campaign. And I'm hoping before all is said and done, we have that opportunity. But it also, this underscores why this campaign is so important and why we need folks, no matter where you live, and whether you're white or black, whether you're gay or straight or whatever religion you are, to support this campaign, because it is my job to reach every voter in this congressional district. We're running on a message not only of equality, but also economic equality. There are folks like you and I and our families that have been struggling for years to make ends meet. We've ridden the ups and downs of this economy, but as we all know, before COVID-19 hit us, that the cost of everything has continued to rise while middle class salaries have not. And it is, I want to focus like a laser beam on these issues, because if we don't solve that problem, then there is little hope for this country. If we don't go to the economic well-being of working Americans, people who are not only working in the restaurants and the service industries, but men and women who are just trying to make it and save a little bit for retirement, then that's just only going to feed in terms of the politicization that we have in this country, and we're seeing things already in our country, in our society, that we never thought we would see in our lifetimes, which is really why one of the reasons why this election is so important, and why it's so important that we need the help of everybody in our community.
Thank you very much, Alan.
Okay. Well, Christopher, thank you for joining us today, and thank you all out there for joining us today. Christopher, one of the things that he was best at ABC was really getting to the gist of what the issues are, no matter what those issues are. And again, we have an incredible opportunity here in terms of this campaign. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee has listed this district as the top turnover possibility in the state of Florida, and that's for a lot of reasons. It includes the fact that Ross Spano is embroiled in scandal right now. He admits to taking almost $200,000 in illegal campaign loans, which is a violation of every voter and every resident of this district in terms of the kind of representative we want to send there. It's something that I've been going after all my entire life in terms of political corruption and shedding a light on people taking advantage of our system. And it's important to win this seat. Also, just if you're looking at the politics of this congressional district, this district is now split right down the middle. It's a third Democrat, a third Republican, a third independent, which means that we can win this race. There are a lot of congressional districts in Florida and around the area where you have overwhelming voter registration, whether it's Democrat or Republican. Here, it is a level playing field. Winning this congressional district is our opportunity if I have your help, if I can raise enough resources to get to every voter, to talk about the issues that we discussed today and tell them why it's important to flip this seat. So again, Christopher, thank you for joining us today. I hope this finds you, all of you watching this today, healthy and safe. We're going to get through this pandemic together, but it's so important that when we do, that we get back to the business of creating a country for all of us, a better, fairer, and more prosperous country than the one that we have today. And that is why I'm running for Congress. So again, thanks for joining us today. We will see you soon as we do some other events like this. Again, we're going to come up and talk about our mental well-being with a local therapist. Next week, we're going to talk to folks in the labor community who are dealing with a lot right now in terms of job loss. And then we have some really special guests in the days and weeks to come. So again, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Until next time.